All right. So in today's meeting today, we have about 1 hour together. So it is going to be a quick meeting. We are really looking forward to your participation, meeting you, learning more about you, and also presenting information about our project. I know for some, this will be the first time that they're really learning about the Respect Project and what is going on in Colorado and beyond. And we will do introductions together. I will have Tami Bond, she's here today. She's going to discuss more about the project, present an overview of the project. She's the PI. We will have one of the researchers, Chris, who's part of the team, present an aspect of the project that we're working on right now, dealing with community interviews. So that'll be the area that we are excited for the conversation and feedback on today. We'll talk about that for about a half hour, and then we'll start wrapping up by 2:55 and do our best for everything to wrap up right at, sorry, not 2:55, I'm in Central Time Zone. So 2 o'clock for you, we'll wrap up around 2:55 for you in Mountain Time and have you out by 3 o'clock. From here, I would just like to do some introductions of attendees. Really great group that we have here today. I'm glad that we were able to connect over email and that you're able to join. I'll call on people one at a time for the intros. If you would like to share your name and the organization that you work for, that would be great. And just to preserve as much time as possible for the conversation and feedback later on in the meeting, if you can be brief with your introductions, that would be great. I'm going to try, I'll be mean and let people know after about 30 seconds if it's going too long. So we're going to get through that quickly. The first person that I'm going to call in, and then I'll call in folks in the room, will be Jennifer Rimmer.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Rimmer. I'm the CEO and Executive Director of Energy Outreach Colorado, and we're a statewide nonprofit whose mission is to ensure that all Coloradans can afford home energy.
Great, welcome. Really glad that you're here today. EJ?
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Janicki. I go by EJ. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior compliance specialist with the Colorado Energy Office with the Weatherization Assistance Program. And one of our subgrantees is EOC. So that's perfect that Jennifer's on the call.
Awesome. I think we're going to have some synergies with these groups already. Rob M.
Yeah, hello. My name is Rob Minnick, and I owned an HVAC company that my grandfather started back in 1954. I was third generation. And a home performance HVAC contractor. I was introduced to home performance back in 2005 and realized it was the missing link for HVAC contractors. And it really made a difference and of course, stood us apart. I ended up selling my company September 2022, and I went to work for that company as director of home performance, and didn't seem to work out very well. So we ended up closing that down, and I'm moving on to other companies that really want to do it.
Awesome. Great to have the home performance perspective on our call. Ken Dante?
Hi, I'm Ken Dante. I've got several hats. The hat I'm here is with the, I'm part of the City of Pueblo Advisory, Electric Advisory Commission. They're all kind of related. I'm also president of a nonprofit called RIOCA, Renewable Energy Owners Coalition of America. And thirdly, I'm part of a coalition called Pueblo's Energy Future. And one big focus is weatherization. So anyway.
Very awesome. So working with community members every day. Selena?
Hi, everybody. So sorry to join late. I'm assuming we're doing intros.
We are correct? Name and organization and 30 seconds or less.
Perfect. Well, my name is Selena Lujan Albers. I work for the city of Fort Collins, and I manage our indoor air quality programs, Healthy Homes and Radon.
Great. Awesome to have indoor air quality specialists with us here today on Healthy Homes. Alicia?
Hi, everybody. I'm Alicia Ratajczak. I'm with the Institute for the Built Environment at Colorado State University, and we work on a number of different projects and things, and I'm happy to be on board.
Awesome. Thanks for joining. and Rebecca Vigil.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Vigil. I use she, her pronouns. I'm the community engagement specialist at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Great, thank you for joining today. I know that there wasn't a lot of information about the project for jumping in, so hopefully we'll get into that in the meeting today. So those are all the guests that are here. I'm going to turn things over to Tami Bond, who is going to provide an overview of the Respect project.
Thank you, Stacy. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Cool. Okay, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about the project, and it's not going to be a full overview, but I want to give you some context for what we're doing. This is a collaboration between 4 universities funded by the National Science Foundation, and it's really about looking forward to the effects that our choice of energy has in the future. So the motivation, and I don't think I need to convince anybody here, probably preaching to the choir, but the story is that climate is changing because of CO2 and other emissions. We'd like to slow down that rate of change. But why is there this concern? Why don't we just let climate change? Well, the ecosystems and earth systems are being altered, and we're concerned that it's a pace faster than we can manage. And a large part of it is that people will experience hardship during these changes. And so the preservation of the current climate, or at least the desire to keep it within a certain bound, is by people and also for people. There are certainly considerations beyond people, but in addition to taking action to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, which people have to do, it's also for people's well-being. And that means that while we're doing this, the experience of those people matters. The experience of people in the future matters, and the experience of people now matters. And I'm going to lump all of these experiential factors into something called well-being. And that's a very broad term. We can argue about what it means and what it contains, but I just want to recognize that the interest in climate preservation goes beyond what we usually look at, which is temperature. So you'll hear things like we have to keep climate change to 1.5 degrees. I'm not going to argue any of those numbers here, but I just want to note that all of the projections that are put forward and discussed in policy arenas rely on assumptions about what human activity is going to be. So you might see these different temperature trends and look in the future, it gets really hot, and then you can see maps where the Arctic is melting. And those are outcomes that we want to avoid. But where do those numbers come from? They come from projections of CO2 that's emitted globally. And a part of that is CO2 that's emitted in the United States. And a part of that is CO2 emitted from homes in the United States. And so in order to make these changes, we have to drill down into exactly what is going on to make these emissions. And I believe that everybody here is a part of a small part of thinking about greenhouse gas emissions, as well as other factors relating to well-being. And so our group focuses on homes, because homes are the center of many possible changes. And so we talk about heat pumps, and we talk about solar panels and electric vehicles. The energy transition view of the world thinks about all of these technological aspects of change and figures out how to implement them in homes. But we also know that homes are the heart of human experience. And when people think about their homes, they very rarely think about what's in the driveway until it's time to get in it. And they very rarely think about the panels on the roof. Instead, they might think about how they want to decorate their interior or the people inside of it. So the occupant view of the home is very different from the energy transition view of the home. And if you think about how often you've thought about the energy coming into your own home, for you all, it's probably much more frequent than everybody else. And it's still much less than 100% of the time. Well-being has so many facets. Climate and temperature change and the experiences that we have, even the extreme weather and wildfires and so on, that's just one facet of well-being. When you, an occupant, are centered in your home, you experience some of those, and there are many other things pulling at your attention, ranging from your screens to potentially, if you're in a really bad situation, a lack of freedom or abuse, and all of those impact well-being. Now, we're not dealing with all of those things, but we do know that changes in the home lead to changes in well-being. And so what if you could imagine, what if you could put forward and discuss future projections that acknowledge more of those facets? So we're not going to project everything, but what if it was more than temperature? And this is happening, right? We're not the only people who are arguing for this. People recognize that there are many, as they say, co-benefits, but if you could increase the number of people in comfort, increase the way that decisions are made to center them more in communities, these would be considered to be positive changes as well. And so one of our goals as a team is to bring a richness to the discussion of well-being around energy transitions. So a couple of the questions that we're asking is how people experience the transitions and how those contribute to their well-being. One might imagine that after one installs a cleaner energy, there's a cost or savings. There's an increased cost or hopefully increased savings. There's more comfort. There's also maintenance. There are other aspects of that, of a new technology or a change in the home. Before the change occurs, I think, especially those of you that are implementing them, recognize that people have different experiences. They don't always focus on the home. There's a bandwidth issue. They may not know where to go for information. And I think as we see throughout our society, there's a lack of trust. And then during the change, there could be both positive and negative influences. You don't just change a piece of technology and then it enters seamlessly into your life. So those are some of the things that we're considering, and I'm going to let Chris Messer, who's here, will talk more about this. We're also interested in differences among people and households. Who could participate? Who might be left out? What are the important barriers or factors that enable the transitions? And do they increase well-being for everyone? Because well-being is not just a bunch of things. People value different pieces of well-being differently. Some people will be extremely happy to have a solar panel on their roof. Some people might accept it, but it may not contribute to their sense that all is well with the world. And given the ways that people adopt changes in their home and some of the barriers, do we really think we can go as fast as is wished? Now, this is a big discussion now because the Inflation Reduction Act and so on are putting a lot of money into this, and we're hoping we can move fast for climate. We're wondering, our team is wondering if we really can, and if we move fast, is that pace best for everyone? So none of this is to question whether energy transitions and climate mitigation are desirable. It's more to open up the discussion. So some of your team, the team members you'll see today over on the left, Stacy, you've already met. Stacy is managing our advisory input. Stacy's been working in energy efficiency for a very long time and working with communities for a really long time. And she'll be managing the advisory input. And the reason that she's from the University of Illinois and we aren't, is I wanted somebody to tell us that, and to hold the rest of the team accountable and not have somebody who's centered inside the team that's working on the project every day. someone who will be conducting the interviews in the homes will speak to you shortly about their content. That's Chris Messer, who's at CSU Pueblo in the Department of Sociology. And then a couple of other people who are here, or Ellison Carter is here, and she's assisting with synthesizing the qualitative outcomes. And then Ryan Scott, a political scientist, is identifying the characteristics of people to interview. If you have questions about that, he's made a short video, although he could not be here today. There's some modeling as part of this project. This is not the subject of this meeting. But so I just want you to know that we have a place for the outcomes to go. When we find information about local conditions through interviews, we're going to ask, what does it mean? How extrapolatable is it? What can we say about transitions in the United States? And those are other people in the team who are working on those things. So a couple of things we're asking of you today, and I'll let Stacy and Chris also add if they want to ask other things or more. Comments on the plans for the interviews. Do you think any questions are missing? What are some specific examples you might think of? And then just also know that we exist and know that the people on this call exist. This is a very active field of investigation right now, so it would be great to stay in touch. And I believe that is all I have.
Tami, thank you so much for that. I don't think we have time for questions from the group to Tami about the project, but if you do have any questions, you can put them in the chat and we will be sure to review the questions and get answers out as appropriate. If it's something quick in the chat, we'll answer in the chat. If it's a longer conversation or email, we'll be in touch. We're going to turn the meeting over next to Chris Messer to describe the aspect of the project that we're calling for your feedback on today, which is the community interview process. Chris has some information to share with you on that.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm just excited to meet you all, and I have a goal of just kind of running through what we're intending to do with the interviews, and hopefully have plenty of time left over. I'll just present for a few minutes here and have plenty of time left over to get more insight from all of you. So as Tami mentioned, our goal is to, in the interviews, is to find out more about the drivers of what we're just calling socio-technical change within the indoor environment. We're going to use semi-structured interviews, which means that everyone is going to answer some rather common baseline questions, but others are going to be asked more specific questions about their experiences and perceptions that are a little bit more crafted around previous responses they've made to questions. So one thing that we're going to be asking about is their residential history. For instance, how long they've lived at their residence, whether they share their residence, how long they've lived in their current community, as well as questions about how long they lived in their previous residence and how their current residence compares with the previous home. We'll ask questions about how they think of home, whether their current residence is also something they perceive to be home. If so, what makes it their home? And if not, what's missing and where do they consider home to be? In terms of the socio-technical change that I referred to earlier, we're wanting to understand changes that have been made and again, the experience around that. So at a basic level, that means, have those experiences been positive or negative? We want to learn more about how they interpret those experiences, how they describe them, what kind of words they use, what kind of anecdotes they can provide around what makes it positive or negative. We want to learn more about whether when they talk about that experience, are they focusing on when this energy change was made? For instance, was it during the installation period? Or do they focus more on the outcome or the post-installation period? We want to know what brought on the change. For instance, was there a problem with the technology that they used before? Did they was there some kind of end of life or some other disruption? Was there some other trigger that brought about that change? We want to know whether other people were involved in making that decision, other household members. Were those other members supportive of the change? Was there any kind of hesitation? We want to know more about how they learned about the upgrade that they made. What was their informational source? And if there's time, I'll talk a little bit more about this, but we also do plan on later talking to people within the industry, like Rob would certainly attest to. They play arguably a very critical role in providing an informational source on this technology. So, but that will be something for later. We also will ask about the decision-making process. So more about when the decision was made, who they reached out to, how did they know to reach out to that party? Were they introduced to the change by someone else? If so, who introduced it? Did they experience any barriers or obstacles when they made that change? Are they satisfied with the change? Again, what are the positives associated with the change? Are there any negatives? Do they find the change to be reliable compared to what they had before? Would they make the change again? And sometimes if you look at the interview script that we have drafted so far, you'll notice that some questions are worded in very similar ways. It almost might seem like we're asking repeat questions to some extent. That is intentional because we're just hoping to get as rich and in-depth responses as possible. So sometimes asking the same question in a very slightly different way can allow them to respond with more depth. And perhaps by arranging the questions so that they're not the same question isn't back to back, perhaps some other question that we ask along the way will trigger a particular train of thought.
I thought
yeah, go ahead.
sorry, Chris, I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's okay.
I think I might be sharing the interview guide for residents. Is that what's on the screen right now? Okay, I usually get like a green box, but I'm not seeing that. Okay, all right, I'll scroll down just a little bit, but please continue.
Okay, and then we also will ask them about why they sought to make this particular change over some alternative. So for instance, if why didn't they just replace the technology they had? Why'd they pick this new thing, or why'd they pick it over some other form of technology? And then if they're considering other changes. And then finally, our goal is to connect this all back to this idea of well-being. And well-being, without going into too much detail here, is something that's been studied in a variety of ways. Others on the team could provide a much fuller accounting of how the different dimensions of well-being that have been studied. But our goal here is to connect that idea of well-being back to specifically the indoor environment and the technology upgrades that have been made. So I'll leave it at that for now, and then that way we can have some time to elicit some feedback, your impression. Again, if you want to focus on specific questions that you think could be reworded, or maybe you can think of some questions that aren't being asked. I also threw up a question for you about what you think of when you hear the word, energy upgrade.
I might have missed this, and I apologize if I have, but is there like a baseline question that's